The group of The Green Mile tells fans something they never knew. Some people say it's one of the best movies based on a Stephen King book ever. A movie that is so deeply moving that even the toughest fans admit to crying. The Green Mile is a story about a man on death row who makes us fall in love with him. For millions of movie fans, this story of supernatural healing, wrongdoing and forgiveness is one of the most heartbreaking movies ever made. But what if I told you that there are thousands of hidden stories beneath the surface that not even the biggest fans have found? Today on this page we're revealing The Green Mile's most secret mysteries, straight from the actors and team who brought this beloved story to life. There are a lot of hidden meanings, early reveals and symbolic details in the movie that change the way you think about Paul Edgecombe's journey. From Hanks's shocking revelations about his character's spiritual journey to Michael Clarke Duncan's amazing change as John Coffey to the scenes that would have given the movie a whole new meaning, there was a lot to enjoy. This is The Green Mile story that no one has told before. I promise that you will never look at The Green Mile the same way again after we're done. The movie that almost didn't happen. Before we get into what the cast told us, there's something important we need to know. The Green Mile almost never got shown in cinemas. After the loss of The Shawshank Redemption at the box office, yes, believe it or not, that movie was first seen as a failure. Frank Darabont, the director, didn't want to make another Stephen King jail story movie. Studios were also not sure if people would be able to sit through a 3-hour death row movie. Tom Hanks's assistance was very important in getting the movie approved. Movie companies paid attention to him after Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan because he was such a big star. But even then, pushed to the film's length a lot. Building the whole death row set from scratch was an important part of giving the movie a real feel. In contrast to The Shawshank Redemption, which was shot in a real prison, The Green Mile needed a setting that was specially made to fit the needs of the story. Terrence Marsh, the production designer who won an Oscar for Dr. Zhivago and Oliver, built the mile with great attention to detail about history. The mile's name comes from the green linoleum that was used in southern jails at the time. Even the wiring and light fixtures were correct for the time era. Actor David Morse, who played Brutus Brutal Howell, has talked about how the carefully created set affected how the actors played their parts. That set was unique. It was planned that the Green Mile stretch would make you feel more and more scared as you walked down it. It got darker in the rooms. The lights looked more scary. The set wasn't just a background. It was a character in the movie. The production team even built a fully working electric chair they called Old Sparky that could be used to make the execution scenes look incredibly real. Charles Gibson, who was in charge of special effects, made the chair so that it could control smoke and lighting effects that made the execution scenes look eerily real. Sam Rockwell, who played Wild Bill Wharton, said that the scenes with the executions made the set feel very tense. Multiple cameras were used to get as many takes as possible of Dell's failed execution because the prosthetics and fireworks were expensive and hard on the actors and crew's emotions. The actors have said that Frank Darabont let them witness the cell block in full silence before the movie started. The actors were put in the roles of guards at their posts and prisoners in their cells for a full afternoon and told to just be in the space without speaking. This activity made them feel the stress and routine of prison life, which would help them in their performances. A lot of people who see the movie don't know that each of the main players created long backstories for their characters. These stories were never told directly in the movie, but they shaped every move and word they said. Tom Hanks has talked about how he made up a personal background for Paul Edgecombe that was much longer than what was shown in the movie. Seeing Paul as a man who had fought in World War I helped him understand Paul's basic goodness and his upsetting response to Percy's abuse. It made him think of the pointless killings he had seen in war. To get ready for John Coffey's role, Michael Clarke Duncan went to hospitals and watched people who needed care. Duncan's performance was affected by this study in subtle ways that most viewers don't even notice. Duncan kept his body language childlike and open when John Coffey was in his cell. But when he is strong or healing, like when he heals Paul's infection, his stance gets more sure and divine. The actor who played Percy Wetmore, Doug Hutchison, said that the sadistic traits of the character were based on a childhood bully that he used to shape his performance. It's the realness, the cruelty, and the human connection that makes people cringe. These character backgrounds show how the actors brought personal experiences and in-depth study to their roles, which turned The Green Mile from a supernatural prison drama into something much more human. What most people don't understand about the hidden meanings. There are many hidden meanings in the Green Mile that most people, even die-hard fans, miss on their first few viewings. In talks over the years, cast and crew have talked about some of these hidden meanings. Watch out for the color green in the movie. It's not just the mile's bottom. When death is close, green shows up. The curtains in the room where people were put to death, Dell's sponge that needed to be soaked in salt water. Even the way Wild Bill looks at himself when he first gets there. There are dozens of times this visual pattern shows up in the movie, but most people don't even notice it. There is more to the healing scenes in the movie than meets the eye. John Coffey heals more than just Paul's urinary tract infection and Melinda Moore's brain tumor when he does it. Everyone John heals also goes through a spiritual change. Paul starts to think about his part in putting people to death. Melinda not only gets better physically, but she also gets her innocence back. She talks to John like a kid who knows another child. John doesn't just heal bodies, he heals minds too. There are many biblical parallels in the movie that add to its themes. It sounds like Psalm 102 when John says, "Boss, I'm tired. I'm tired of being on the road. I'm lonely as a sparrow in the rain. As an owl in the desert, I feel like I'm in a lost world. I'm wide awake, I feel like a bird sitting alone on a roof." This link turns John from a simple magical character into a figure like Christ who is alone and suffering. When you understand this, things that seem small become very important. When the guards take off John's chains during his execution, it looks like Christ is being taken down from the cross. John tells Paul to be still when Paul asks him what he should do. It sounds like biblical words about giving in to God's will. There's more to the mouse than meets the eye. Mr. Jingles, the mouse who seems to live forever and becomes Edouard Delacroix's friend, may be the most loved part of the Green Mile. But this little figure is there for a lot more than just laughs. The mouse pretty much acts as the movie's moral guide. Pay attention to who is nice to him and who isn't. It's the first test of person we see. Even though Dell has done bad things, he is kind to this little creature. Just because he can, Percy tries to kill it. At first wants to ignore it, but in the end decides to keep it safe. That choice foreshadowed his choice to help John Coffey later on. The main question of the movie is put to the test by Mr. Jingles. Do the weak deserve to be protected, even if it costs you something? That question is answered by every character in how they treat the mouse, long before they have to answer it about John Coffey. This carefully thought-out symbolism changes the meaning of the movie's ending, where we learn that Mr. Jingles has lived decades longer than a regular mouse. He carries the gift and curse of John Coffey's touch, just like Paul did. It reminds him of God's supernatural grace in a world that is otherwise normal. How the weather tells stories. One of the most minor but effective ways that the Green Mile tells its story is through the weather. The weather outside the jail shows how people are feeling inside. The night that Dell's killing went wrong, there is a very strong thunderstorm. It's strangely still and quiet on the day John tells Paul the truth. John's killing, on the other hand, happens on a clear night with the moon shining. Nature at its most peaceful and lovely, just like John's state of calm acceptance. The most important thing is that the first really sunny day in the whole movie happens when Paul visits Coffey's grave in the end. The only graveyard scene with really nice weather is the last one. Every other scene outside is shot at night with clouds or rain. After carrying his story for decades, Paul finally tells it. Only then does the sun truly shine. Most people who watch this method for telling a story visually don't even realize they're using it, but it changes the emotional tone of every scene. There is never any light in the jail, but there is always true peace all around. The Fear of the Dark by John Coffey. For many movie fans, the emotional high point of the movie is when John Coffey says he is afraid of the dark right before he is put to death. I was scared of the dark. This powerful scene comes straight from Stephen King's book, which makes Coffey's fear of the dark very clear. This scene works so well because it makes John Coffey seem more like a person. Even though he has magical powers and is like Christ in many ways, he has a very human fear that strikes a chord with people deeply. The kind giant who can help others still needs to be cared for by people. Because of this part of John's personality, we can now better understand why the guards didn't put the usual hood over John's face during his execution. Not only rules are being broken, it's a very kind thing to do for a man who is scared of the dark. The link between Percy and Wild Bill. The connection between Percy Wetmore and Wild Bill Wharton is one of the most disturbing in The Green Mile. Both figures are bad but in different ways. The organized type, which is shown by Percy's political ties, and the disorganized type, which is shown by Wild Bill. A key connection is made between these two bad guys when Wild Bill grabs Percy and mouths obscenities at him, scarring him so much that he freezes during Dell's execution. Like how Percy going crazy because of the evil that Wild Bill breathed into him was cosmic justice. John Coffey makes a beautiful ending to their story circle. It is said that studio execs tried to cut Percy's part because they thought he took away from the main story. Darabont knew that John's death wouldn't have the same moral weight if this more normal, governmental evil wasn't shown along with Wild Bill's violent chaos. We had to look at how processes protect people like Percy Wetmore while punishing people like John Coffey. In this light, Percy's final fate as a catatonic patient in a mental hospital is even more moving. The man who used his power so cruelly is now just as useless as the prisoners he used to control because they are protected by the same system he used to hurt them. It's not what you think the wonder is in The Green Mile. Most people who see the movie think that John Coffey's healing power is the main wonder, but there's another way to look at it. John's supernatural skills aren't the real wonder. He makes Paul and the other guards more moral because of it. At the beginning of the movie, these guys are just doing their jobs as parts of a killing machine. By the end they're ready to risk everything, their jobs, their freedom, and maybe even their lives to save an innocent man. This understanding changes the movie from a supernatural thriller to a much deeper meditation on how people's conscience can awaken and lead to moral courage, even in the most rigid systems. John also finds a surprise. It's men who are kind to him and think he's innocent, even if they can't save him. He feels sympathy after a lifetime of being scared and misunderstood. That's a big deal. This multifaceted view of wonders may help explain why the movie has struck such a deep chord with viewers. It's not just a story about an evil spirit mending people, it's about how people can suddenly become morally awake. The ability to see when someone is being unfair and refuse to take part in it, even if it costs them something. The famous finish, but not at all the same. The fact that the play's ending almost turned out very differently may be the most important thing that was learned about it. The strong ending that showed an old Paul Edgecombe still alive after many years thanks to John's touch almost didn't make it. It is said that studio bosses wanted the movie to end with John's death. They said that the ending scene with Paul living in a nursing home was not needed because the movie was already too long. But Darabont fought for that ending because the movie isn't really about death in the end. The story is about having to live with the results of the decisions we make. People wouldn't understand how important the story really is if they didn't see Paul decades later, still haunted by the death of an innocent man. It's interesting that the scenes with the older Paul were the first ones that were filmed. This set the tone for the movie's emotions and let the story be told through the lens of sorrow and memories. The leader's decision to cut these scenes makes no sense now that I see how well they fit into the story. The Green Mile would be a very different movie without that ending. A movie more about a magical cure than about death, guilt and how much it costs to do bad things, even if you don't mean to. The things you didn't see. Even though Green Mile's 3-hour runtime let Darabont include most of what he had in mind, it is said that some parts were cut. According to interviews with cast and crew, these deleted scenes would have given more information about important characters and relationships, even though they were never publicly released. A longer scene showing Paul Edgecombe's first day on the job at Cold Mountain Penitentiary was said to have been cut. It would have been clear that Paul had never worked on death row before, which would have made his moral journey even more clear. We would have seen this young man slowly come to terms with what his job really required of him. According to another story, more scenes with Bonnie Hunt's character John Edgecombe, who plays Paul's wife, were cut. These would have shown how Paul's experiences on the mile affected his relationship and home life, which would have explained the small stresses in their scenes together, especially when Paul first talks about John Coffey. For people who like The Green Mile, these supposed missing pieces add to the movie's already rich experience. There's a chance that some storylines and character traits were left out of the final cut. From bodyguard to Oscar candidate, Michael Clarke Duncan has done a lot. Michael Clarke Duncan's journey to play John Coffey is one of the most amazing stories in Hollywood.
In just a few short years he went from being a famous bodyguard to being nominated for an Academy Award. Back before the Green Mile, Duncan's life had nothing to do with Oscars or red carpets. He was 6 feet 5 inches tall and almost 300 pounds. In Chicago, he worked as a ditch digger. Later he became a bouncer and bodyguard for famous people like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. On his playing resume, he had small parts as security guards, bouncers, and scary background characters. It was very hard to find the right person to play John Coffey. Not only did the actor need to be able to physically exist, but they also needed to be able to reflect both childlike innocence and wisdom from another world. Duncan almost tried out for the part. Duncan didn't want to try out because he didn't think he was good enough as an actress for such a complicated role. The test has become a famous story in Hollywood. Duncan reportedly had trouble with his lines because he was so nervous, but the room went silent when he gave John Coffey's famous, "I'm tired of people being mean to each other" speech. Darabont later said that he knew right away that they had found John Coffey. Duncan worked with famous acting coach Larry Moss, who has helped a lot of actors get ready for transformative parts, to get ready for the part. He studied people who needed help, watched kids to see how they would react when they weren't thinking about it, and got softer than his scary roles required. Duncan was still having trouble with confidence when shooting started. Tom Hanks stepped in as an unplanned teacher and helped Duncan with his first big movie role by giving him advice between takes. When the movie came out, reviewers who had never heard of Michael Clarke Duncan were blown away by how he played the part. He was nominated for both the Academy Award and the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor, which is almost unheard of for someone with so little playing experience. Duncan lost the Oscar to Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules in the end, but the nod changed his life and career. After that, he was in many big movies, like The Whole Nine Yards, Planet of the Apes, The Scorpion King and Daredevil. He never played an anonymous security guard or bouncer again. Michael Clarke Duncan's journey from bodyguard to Oscar nominee is still one of the most moving stories in movie history. A story about hidden ability, lucky breaks, and having the guts to become great when the time is right. The movie's second chance. The movie Green Miles did okay at the box office, but nothing special. When it opened in December 1999, it made $136 million in the United States, a good return on the $60 million it cost to make, but not the huge numbers that some people were hoping for from a Tom Hanks movie. Home video and cable TV were where the movie's real fans found it. If someone finds this movie, they will want to share it with someone they care about right away. People told their friends about it, and it quickly became one of the most watched movies on TV and a regular hit on DVD. People had to be patient to watch a movie about being patient and seeing things in the big picture. You don't just watch this movie for fun, you have to give it your full emotional attention. People don't always want that in the theater, but when they're at home, they let themselves be open and sensitive. By 2020, the movie was in the official list of current American classics. This movie is often included on lists of the most incredibly powerful movies ever made. What began as a risky remake turned out to be much more than just a hit at the box office. It had become an important part of American culture. The history, what keeps the Green Mile going. It's getting close to the 25th anniversary of the Green Mile, which makes people wonder why this movie has stayed so popular when other shows that got good reviews have been forgotten. We all have a fear of death, hope for miracles, and a desire to think that even the most broken systems can still have moments of grace and humanity. The Green Mile speaks to all of these things. It also doesn't give simple answers to the moral questions it brings up. The movie doesn't teach. It doesn't tell you what to think about racism, being spiritual, or the death penalty. It tells you a story that has something to do with all of those things, and lets you think about what it all means. That's why people remember it. It shows that it knows how smart the viewer is. The Green Mile is more than just an inspirational story because it deals with deep issues like justice, death, faith, and forgiveness in a nuanced way. However, it also recognizes how complicated life is for people and eventually affirms our ability to be kind and morally brave. What the Green Mile is about is what we can't lose, who we are as people, our choice to be kind even when things aren't working right, and our ability to see wrong and fight it, even if we're not great at it. People will relate to this story as long as these problems are around. It's easy to think that commercial entertainment isn't important these days, but The Green Mile reminds us that the stories that really touch our hearts are the ones that ask us hard moral questions and trust us to find our own answers. The Green Mile makes us remember why we love movies in the first place. Movies are more than just entertainment, they show our deepest battles and highest hopes. We can understand what makes this movie a modern gem by looking at how carefully it was made. Every part of The Green Mile was made with a lot of thought, from the beautifully designed jail set to the carefully thought-out character journeys, and from the thoughtful visual symbolism to Michael Clarke Duncan's powerful performance. Though it never feels built, it seems like Darabont and his team didn't really make up this story, they just found it. That might be why the movie has been so popular for almost 25 years. It's not like a show, it seems like truth dressed up as fiction. John Coffey tells Paul to be nice to all of them. That's your job. If these new things about The Green Mile have been interesting to you, I encourage you to watch the movie again with fresh eyes. Find the green color theme we talked about. Look at how the weather shows the mental journey. Pay close attention to how each character treats Mr. Jingles, because it shows what kind of person they will be. Please show this movie to someone who hasn't seen it yet. There's something magical about seeing someone walk the Green Mile for the first time. Watch them find a story that has affected many people's lives. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks at some of the best movies ever made. If you don't want to miss any of our posts, click the bell below and tell us what you think is the most powerful scene in The Green Mile. No matter what, we all owe a death until the next time. But sometimes, oh God, The Green Mile seems so long.